the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9. I said I've never seen such hideousness in all my life.
I said listen to all of this, sir.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with bite.
But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9. I said I've never seen such hideousness in all my life.
I said listen to all of this, sir.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with bite.
But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9.
I said I've never seen such hideousness in all my life.
Listen to all this,
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Buddy.
But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Let's begin it.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 291. And what happened to my freaking title? I just retyped that and it reverted. Well, that pisses me off. I'm a victim of technology, guys.
Well, that has to be the new title. This is HBR Talk number. And what the hell happened to my freaking title?
This isn't just technical difficulties. It's like Google undoing my work. Like, what the fuck? It was there. Seriously, like the whole thing is just gone. It's not gone from everything else though. So, there we go. Women can't even avoid this as members of UK Parliament. And what is this? This is going to be a fun one. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson. And tonight we're jumping out of the toxic frying pan and into British Parliament.
Come back, Michael Flood. All is forgiven.
But we're taking a break from Flood. Oh, God. Before we get into that, we got to do what we got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions. And as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. We've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platform's tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. So I will say, because this is an article, and I've got Jess Phillips here on the screen for you guys with her Duper's Delight, a permanent fixture on her face, really. Her whole face always shows Duper's Delight one way or another. I've noticed that. She doesn't have another expression. She just has variations on the Duper's Delight grin. But there you go. So you can see that she's being very dupey, even now that she has engaged in extreme body modification. But yeah, this is a Daily Mail article, so people are going to think of it as a fluff piece. But it's not. It's actually a very insidious, whiny victim signaling effort at demonizing the entire male population with false allegations. And sorry guys, I don't understand why my uvula has decided to speak up during the showtime. I am on all the allergy medicine I should be. There's no reason for this. Fuck off uvula. Maybe I should get that removed. But in any case, here we go. So taking a look at this article, I want to preface it with a point about apex fallacy. Right? We get told all the time that based on feminist patriarchy theory, which is not real theory, it's just conjecture, that by association of being the same sex as members of parliament, members of Congress, members of various governing bodies around the world, men are all privileged, and they're all dominant and domineering and predatory, and they all participate in the mass disadvantaging of women, right? That just by virtue of that apex, men have that apex, according to feminism, that they're in control, they're in positions of power, and they have power, and blah, blah, blah. Right? So the translation is that if your gender has legislative power, that makes you oppressors, not victims of oppression. You are automatically, as a whole gender, excluded from compassion for victimhood, right? And that's the apex fallacy that we deal with every day when feminists tell us that when bad things happen to men, it's just bad luck or misfortune or social ill that is affecting men by side effect, or men getting side effects from being patriarchs, right? Men experiencing the side effects of their power. But when bad things happen to women, it happens to them because they're women, because the patriarchy is oppressing them, and because they are perpetual victims of everything. Because men are in positions of power and authority, and women aren't. Except this article is about a member of parliament and her victimhood.
It's the same impetus behind decolonization. Like the British government colonized our government, and so our people are going to colonize your people. We're not going to shrink your government. We're not going to lay any consequences at the feet of your government. As a matter of fact, we're just going to bolster every oikophobic policy they have. All we're going to do is move into the neighborhoods of the oiks, and we're going to make their lives worse. Even the people who didn't benefit from British colonization at all, they've always been, stuck in industrial working class jobs, much like their great-great-grandparents were. But those are the people we're going to make suffer. We're not going to make your government suffer, even though they were the ones who fucked up our country and who fucked up our people. We're going to bolster your government and we're going to fuck up your people. It's the government fucks up and the people get punished every single time.
Yep. And it's always gendered. It's always men are at fault, women are victims. Even when the government does things that women band together in masse and engage in pressure campaigns to get them to do, like using government power to steal from people in masse to pay other people to make stupid choices. Right? Women did that. Women in masse petitioned for the whole welfare state that we have to deal with now. Women in masse petitioned for different conditions to be applied to divorce so that women wouldn't be held accountable when they cheat or when they abandon a marriage that is not abusive, etc. But it's not women's fault, right? And it's not the fault of the women who engage in those behaviors, who abandon a marriage and then fleece the guy, who keep fathers away from their children by engaging in custody interference and parental alienation, who have demanded that women and children be put first in terms of the being on the dole, and who have protected the idea of being on the dole. Nope. It's the government. It's all the government's fault. It has absolutely nothing to do with those women. The women that vote for politicians that give them money, and the women who write to those politicians, give us more money, or who support organizations that lobby those politicians to give women more money. And so we're going to look at, even though Jess Phillips is a clown, and I say that in the least respectful way possible, she's when a member of parliament is afraid of a nobody like me, and she blocked me on Twitter like 10 years ago. Actually, yeah, before Gamergate, so 10 years ago, she's a clown. She's an absolute clown.
You give her far too much credit by calling her a clown. Clowns it's a reasonable job to be a clown. A clown is someone who entertains people for a living. Jess Phillips is an evil cunt.
True. She's more like a killer clown from outer space. You're probably too young to have seen that movie.
Or the clown from It.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's not that powerful. She's
Wow.
the killer clowns from outer space. You have to watch the movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space to understand. You will see the connection.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have to look that up. But see, the thing is
you're
that
not quite too young to have seen that movie, but it came out when we were kids.
yeah, I'm sure I haven't, but I'm gonna look it up. I want to see
Yeah.
it. But and the thing is that like she doesn't have to be that powerful. She thinks in her mind that she's that fucking powerful, and that's why she is the way that she is. You know what I mean? It's just. God, she's just such a fucking smug cunt.
Yeah.
I mean, and that picture that you showed of her, yeah, there is absolutely, I see the duper's delight, but she just looks absolutely chuffed. She is so self-satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Oh, it drives me crazy. But
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
So here we go. I have to say it this way. Labor's Jess Phillips says she had 6,000-pound breast reduction surgery. This is what you get for having 6,000-pound breasts. 6,000-pound breast. I know you guys on the other side of the pond measure everything in stones, but this sounds hilarious in the United States. Like, does that mean that each breast was 3,000 pounds? Or
Pretty sure they might have removed some of her ass as well.
Yeah. Forget my 600-pound life. Let's talk about the 6,000-pound breast reduction surgery. To stun male MPs leering at her.
Picturing what 3,000-pound breasts would actually look like.
Your car weighs 2,000 pounds. Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. And it's made out of metal and glass. Like, breasts are mostly made out of water. So it would be like 2,000-pound water balloons. Water balloons the size of a kiddie pool. Under human skin. Actually, breasts are mostly fat. Which is why, when you get fat, you get bigger breasts. And then when you slim down, if you're either... You could consider yourself very lucky or very unlucky. They don't reduce with you.
Yes! I was so surprised by that. I was like, holy shit, how do I still have these? Yeah. I mean, thank you, but life hack.
and as you can tell from sort of the thumbnail for the article, which has side-by-side pictures of her, where on the right, she's in a mustard-colored shirt, and she has a lot more fluff to her cheeks and bigger breasts, and then on the left, she's slimmer all around, and she's had the reduction. That's probably what happened to her. This is something that happens, especially when women hit middle age. Like, if we work in an office type job, which I'm assuming members of parliament spend a lot of time behind a desk, and not a lot of time shoveling dirt or lifting heavy objects or walking long walks, except for what's her name, AOC, who wore out her shoes campaigning unnecessarily. But I don't think they get a lot. Their job doesn't give them a lot of exercise. So if they don't go out and do it outside of, this is the job, they're going to get fat. Their boobs are going to get bigger. And then when they lose the weight, a lot of women don't lose the boob.
And so you're quite unlikely to go out and do much exercise if you live in Birmingham Yardley, because it's an urban hellhole full of rapists. Grapists. Sorry, it's one of those.
Yes,
cities
but they wouldn't even rape her.
We went there. Almost
You
to the top.
goddamn well bet I did. I'm in the U.S. and I can say whatever the fuck I want.
That was awesome.
Oh. Yeah, she's afraid of harmless people. That's what her problem is. She's afraid of people who won't do anything to her.
Yeah.
Which is the most feminist thing in the world.
She's genuinely not afraid of anyone. She knows she has the power to imprison anyone who fucking looks at her sideways.
Yep.
And she will, as long as they're white British men.
Yeah.
So this is the next thing. This requires the meme where you type nobody or everybody or whatever, and then there's a blank space, and then Jess Phillips, I'm a victim. Stop staring at me. Because this I haven't seen or heard any news about anybody talking about her breasts before this article came out.
No.
Like this is just her speaking into the void, right? And of course a guy wrote the article, but he's probably a male feminist, so
as a male, Jess, and I don't like to start any sentence or point with as a, but that does appear to be who you're targeting as the demographic targeting you. As a man, I can't say I've ever noticed your boobs. All I've ever noticed about you aesthetically is your bent double Frankenstein smacked ass of a face, and your bulldog smugly licking piss off a thistle expression, and that's only because it's the thing you're using to spew your hateful bile at every male constituent whom you're supposed to be serving. The only person who ever gave a shit about your boobs is you. And possibly your husband, and I doubt he's particularly impressed.
I mean, imagine being so reprehensible that nobody cares about your tits, and they were massive. Like they were.
Yeah,
I mean, but
they
then
were pretty massive. Well, it's
yeah, but
like
I
I
mean,
said, it's what happens. You gain weight, and the tits get bigger, and then you lose weight. And a lot of women on modern dietary advice have yo-yo dieted for 10 or more years during their middle age and the early part of their older age. And she's like what, uh, in her 40s or 50s, 60s maybe.
Jess,
Yeah,
I think I don't know.
it's hard to tell because if you look at the picture where she's chubby, being chubby can make you look a little younger, and then when you lose the weight, it makes you look older than you are. So I can't tell. She could be as young as in her 30s and still look like
No,
that, but
I
I
don't
don't.
know.
I would have my doubts given what she does for a living. Most people in that profession are closer to, you know, 50s, 60s, and older. If she's coloring her hair, and you know, there's actually a lot of gray there, then I might say later 60s, but yeah, in any case, like she's had plenty of time to go through that process, and you'll notice it if you notice the women around you and their weight changes, and they'll have whole wardrobes set aside for this. Like I know women that do this. And as I've lost weight, I've thrown out my fat clothes because I'm not giving myself a chance to regain the weight. And if I end up feeling like I got to buy new clothes, that's going to be time to hit the gym, not the mall, right? Because I don't want to have a heart attack when I'm in my mid 50s and not realize it like my mom, or realize it because I lose 75% of my heart function like my dad did. So I get it from both sides. I'm not allowed to be fat. But in any case, yeah, you know, this is so it's of course she had nobody cared, but yes, she had huge knockers. They're like the least important thing about her, but here we have an article about them after nobody talked about them until this article.
Right. I mean, and you know, I'm taking this at who is this Nick Constable's word
Right.
that this is what Jess Phillip says. You know that this is why she had it because the male MPs were leering at her. You know, if you just stuck with I had back pain and neck pain and it was better for my health, you know, and it really helped me and stuck with that, or, you know, tried to highlight like, you know, breast cancer. I mean, for all the fluff that is, and not saying that breast cancer isn't serious, but, you know, that's just kind of how I feel about breast cancer or charities in general. They're really just a scam, you know what I mean? Because most of the money that you donate to these charities, pick your flavor, goes to pay the salaries of the people in charge of these organizations and, you know, the staff.
Yeah, a lot of charities, like 75 to 95% of what they take in just gets, you know, goes to salary. Now, some of that
Right.
complaint is deceptive, some of it's not. Like the complaint is deceptive when we're talking about charities where the payment we're talking about is for people to distribute goods and perform services and things like that. For instance, there are charities in the Dayton metro area that provide medical care and dental care to people who don't have insurance and don't have money, and they take in a lot of money, and some of that money goes to pay people who volunteer for those charities. So a doctor that would charge $150 for a visit at his office might get, you know, like 60 or 70 bucks for a visit at this charity organization, so that, you know, he's not taking such a big loss. Or maybe the doctor volunteers his time, but the nurses get paid, because when your pay is lower, than that of a doctor. You can't afford to lose as much of it because your expenses aren't necessarily significantly lower than, there's a certain minimum for living expenses. And of course, when you get down to like people who do the nurse's aide type of job, where they're doing the grunt work and the janitors and stuff like that, you got to get paid for that, because that's the type of job that somebody has a lack of skill in other areas. They're not making money somewhere else that they can afford to then just do that job for free. So sometimes the salary thing is bullshit, but then other times you have somebody who's getting paid $350,000 a year to attend 6 meetings a year, like in the domestic violence victims advocacy organizations. That happens a lot. That's where a lot of charities get that reputation. So there we go in regard to charities. But yeah, let's get into this article, because the first thing I want to point out is that the 2 bullet points, right? Labour MP Jess Phillip said the operation was not done for cosmetic reasons, right after the headline said she had the surgery to stop male MPs leering at her. So, reducing your attractiveness, which is basically what she's alleging here. I had to reduce my attractiveness so people would stop staring at me, which is bullshit.
Literally cosmetic.
She's not really. She's nowhere near all that, much less the bag of chips. She ate the bag of chips, okay? But multiple times. But in any case, yeah, that's cosmetic. Reducing or increasing your attractiveness on purpose. Either way, that's cosmetic. Right? People who get tattoos on their faces and make themselves look weird to normies, that's cosmetic. Even though most people would look at that and be taken a little aback, and some people consider it ugly, it's still cosmetic. An Albert Nader rector gave us $5 Canadian and said nobody is Googling Jess Phillip's equipment in the UK when they can still Google Samantha Fox's old page 3 pictures. Oh my gosh, yes. Baron Von Brass asks, isn't that the same reason you got your boobs reduced, Hannah? No, actually, I haven't had surgery on my boobs. I actually do get back pain from them, but it's not bad enough to go through the pain and risk of surgery. I have had a couple of family members that have died from sepsis after surgery, so for me, I look at it as a serious risk. Anytime you let somebody stick a knife into your flesh, even if it's supposed to be a sterilized knife in a sterile environment, there have to be very compelling reasons for me to do that. And I don't have reasons that compelling. But, who knows? Maybe she has a smaller bone frame than me.
One way or another, she's contradicting herself, and right. One way or another, she's lying. What do we think it is? Do we think she got the surgery to reduce neck and back pain, and she's just pretending that male MPs are leering at her? Or did she get it to stop male MPs leering at her, and it just so happened to help her with her neck and back pain? I'm gonna go with the former. I'm gonna go with she did it for health reasons to stop neck and back pain, but she couldn't resist the temptation to have a jab at men everywhere.
Yeah.
And because she's fundamentally a narcissist, and she can't help thinking, oh, everyone's looking at me, everyone fucking loves me, and I hate it.
As if OnlyFans doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're staring at you, bitch. Shut the fuck up.
She also called the surgery the greatest thing that ever happened to her, which I hope she doesn't have any kids.
She said, except her husband and kids. That's a quote that comes up soon.
Good, because that's one that, my family is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I would say my husband, the absolute greatest, and having kids was right up there with him. And it would just, I can't imagine naming surgery as being comparable to that. Again, unless it was to relieve a level of pain that was making me. And I've seen people go through surgery to correct things that are so painful that they've been suicidal over the pain prior to the surgery, and that includes family members as well. But I haven't met anyone who had that experience with breast pain who wasn't smaller than she looks to be and larger of breast. Like, there actually is such a thing as an H cup. Every woman in the audience is cringing. Like,
They go
Yeah.
bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've seen, what is it, the line from Arlo Guthrie's The Significance of the Pickle, a pickle the size of 4 pregnant watermelons. That's a tit the size of 4 pregnant watermelons. That might cause that much breast pain, but that's not this situation, right? This is probably maybe somewhere in the DEF range, right? Depending on how narrow her back got when she lost her. Yeah. Then there's the coffee tits. Richard brings up K cups. That's great. But yeah. So I'm pressing, I'm pressing X to doubt here, like, and pressing F for the boobs, whatever. But I doubt sincerely that it was the level of being the best thing that ever happened. It's a great improvement, I'm sure. Right? Probably a great relief. So Labour MP Jess Phillips accused male MPs of harboring an obsession with the size of her chest after revealing that she had breast reduction surgery. Phillips said the operation, which she underwent 2 years ago, so 2 years have passed before she found it necessary to talk about this.
It's still fresh in her mind.
Breast cut.
Every time she sees the scar, Hannah, it reminds her of the emotional trauma that she had to go through.
Like, this is a whole other level from getting PO'd because somebody didn't notice you got your hair dyed or like a different shade of the same color.
Presumably this Nick Constable chap emailed her 2 years later and said, "Hi, Jess, can I interview you about your boobs?"
Yeah.
And rather than say, "No, I'm an MP, do you have any politics to talk about?" She went, "Hell yeah, come round to my house, here's my address, I'd love to chat to you about my boobs."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. 2 years ago, it was not done for cosmetic reasons, but helped relieve a lifetime of neck and back pain. However, she also
lifetime.
Yeah.
A whole life. She had them since she was 5 years old, guys. It was just a whole lifetime.
Yeah, and if you start to get them when you're that young, there's a thing that they do in medicine where they give you hormone treatment to put the pause button on your development. And that's been co-opted by another group of people. So
yes. Yeah.
But yeah, she said, however, she also blamed the male gaze, adding, all they're talking about is your cleavage, especially in this place. I couldn't wear anything that didn't make me look like a tent or trying to look sexy. If you wear anything even slightly tight and you have big boobs, you're done for.
Do you remember Philip Davis? Yes. He had something else to talk about, didn't he?
Yes.
How did you react, Jess?
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah, she's the one who made the astute observation that we can start working on men's problems after all of women's problems are solved. And then still thinks we live in a patriarchy. Right? Women come first. Women's problems come first. Men can take a back seat. Nothing that can happen to men is as important as even the most minor thing that happens to women. But we live in a patriarchy where all women are oppressed.
Yep.
Right. And like I said, I want to go back to that whole apex fallacy thing here. She's a member of parliament. If a man, a homeless man, complained about, say he was kidnapped and raped by a bunch of women, or some crazy thing that women, maybe don't have the physical strength or interest to do to a homeless guy because he might be crazy or might be stronger than them or whatever. But let's say that it happened. Like, that's not usually how it happens to guys. Usually it's somebody they know, and usually it's when they're drunk or otherwise compromised, but like blackmailed or whatever. But let's just say, a homeless guy, completely underprivileged, obviously not in a position of authority, obviously not in a position of power, obviously not in a position of wealth, right? Has something horrible like that happen to him. Her response would be, well, his male privilege protects him, right? It's not as bad as when it happens to a woman. She's a bigger victim because she's a woman than this individual who had experienced this violent crime, right? And if he committed suicide over it, she'd laugh. Because male MPs control everything, right? And male congressmen, male presidents, male prime ministers, male emperors, male leadership. But here she is in a position of power. Here she is in a position of leadership. She probably has a great deal more money than I do. She probably gets paid a lot more to do her job than I get paid to do mine, and so on. But she's a victim of eyeball rape. She's a victim of being looked at by other people. Not being touched, not being violently assaulted, not being subdued and had things done to her against her will, not being attacked by a large group of people in a public place and nobody doing anything to help because they don't care about you because your gender. None of that. Nope. Eyeballs. She's a victim of the violence of eyeballs. People looked at her, or at least that was
according
what she
to
felt
her.
like, right? She felt looked at.
I'm gonna press X to doubt that anyone ever actually did send their eyeballs in her direction.
And it just blows my mind. Like, I know other women who are bigger girls with much bigger boobs who have had that. Like, I've got a friend who is a school teacher who has to be very careful how she dresses to not be provocative. And it's just part of it is because when you are bigger and your boobs are bigger, your cleavage actually shows higher up. It doesn't stop where your breasts meet your breastbone. Everything squishes together in tight clothing, and your cleavage can go up to your collarbone. Like, so she wears different clothing than a lot of other people because you can't have cleavage in the classroom, right? Unless you're Canadian man.
I was
trying
just...
to make fun of trans women. But anyway, she's in the United States, right? Yeah, she makes a shit ton more than me, but holy shit. I'm not going to tell you guys what I make. I don't do the job that I do at night. I'm a direct support professional for intellectually disabled adults. You don't go into that for the money. It's not lucrative. And it's never going to be, because you're helping people who don't have money, and your pay is set by the government. And the people in government that tell everybody how much they think employers should be responsible for paying a living wage and everything, if they're the ones that set your pay, they change their mind about that real fast.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, but it's taxpayer money, so it's fair that they change their mind about that real fast, because I get paid by money that comes from Medicaid, and that's just a fact of life. And if that was all that Medicaid was used for, I don't think I'd complain about it. But unfortunately, it's not. Albert Nader Retro gives us $5 and says, well, Hannah, only 1 in a billion CEOs is a woman, and a homeless guy getting gang raped by women isn't as important. Holy internalized misogyny, lady! And by the way, my comments about that are Africa is excluded from those comments because obviously that does happen there. There are news stories about it. So that's another thing. Albert Nader Retro gives us another $2 Canadian and says, sorry, I meant important. Impotent. Oh, I read that important too, but it's impotent. Women aren't as impotent. That's a great Freudian slip. So yeah, she makes this comment like it's a matter of people doing something to her, but it's her assumption, right? You have to recognize the shape of your body. Just like I have a story that I think I told clear back during our blog talk days about women and clothing. Right? My friend and I were about 5 inches different from each other in height, and I was a just complete skinny walking stick of a girl, and she was curvy. She was short and curvy, and we bought the same dress, and we both wore it to school on the same day. Same dress, different colors, right? And nobody complained in terms of, like, the administrators didn't complain, the teachers didn't complain, the boys didn't complain, but the girls did. And the girls got us both in trouble with different teachers. Me for showing too much leg, same skirt length. Her for showing too much cleavage, same top cut. But I didn't have cleavage, so I didn't get in trouble for that. And while the skirt went halfway down my leg, it went almost to her knees. And so she didn't get in trouble for that either. I'm mostly leg. Like, I'm telling you guys, my legs go, like, right all the way. They stop at my boobs. So, but yeah, you learn to recognize what impression you might create on other people, and you have an awareness of that. But that awareness is never somebody else's fault. Now, granted, the girls getting pissed at us, that was their fault. They got jealous. We weren't distracting the boys. The boys never said a word to us or stared at us or nothing, right? We weren't distracting the teachers or administrators. They didn't care. It was the other girls that got pissed off. And that's mostly because they were angsty teenagers that were a little insecure themselves, and it bothered them. So, and there's only like a handful. It wasn't like all the other girls in our class either, right? So it's a rare thing. But here she is attributing her need to have surgery, not just cover up, not just dress modestly, not just be aware of the impression she creates on other people, but to physically have part of herself cut into and removed to the male gaze. Like, that's some serious victim signaling. She called the surgery the greatest thing that's ever happened to me apart from her husband and children, and dismissed criticism that her decision was anti-feminist. Right.
Well, no, it was feminist, because apparently it was based on the male gaze.
Yes, victimhood. But who criticized her? Who said that having a breast reduction is anti-feminist? Because I haven't seen anything about that either. I've not run across a single article saying Jess Phillips had a breast reduction and it was totally anti-feminist of her. Didn't see it on Twitter. Didn't know she had a breast reduction until I saw this article. Have you guys seen anything?
Hell no. No, I mean, uh, again, like you said, she just popped up out of nowhere 2 years later, talking about her tits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard hide nor hair of her since Sargon made her famous.
Yeah. I just this is again a question of narcissism, in my opinion. You guys are all looking at me. You guys are obsessed with the size of my boobs. You guys are accusing me of being anti-feminist. You guys are thinking about me. I went out with a narcissist once. It was a trip. It was really interesting. It's like there was no connection on the date, so we didn't go out on another date. And I thought, well, that's done, Okay, that was fun, kind of, and on to the next, thing in life and try to figure out somebody to be partners with. This is not the one. And I would have assumed the individual was thinking the same thing about me. Well, that was interesting, but, this is not the one. Let's move on to look somewhere else. But instead, this dipshit went on a bender of accusations for like 6 months, ending in middle of the night phone calls telling me to stop thinking about him. I don't like going, I wasn't until you fucking called me in the middle of the night. Like, what the hell? And I finally, to make the break very clear, made a mixtape of leave me alone type songs and sent it. Here's the mixtape for our non-relationship. Please never call me again. And like, that's the one case of a bad, I don't know, I guess I can call that a relationship, considering it lasted 6 months. It's like it's like anti-stalking. Somebody heckling you to leave them alone when you're not talking to them for 6 months. It's one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me, right? This reminds me of that. This reminds me very much of that individual. These people are staring at me. What people? Those people over there. You mean the ones with their backs turned? Well, they're thinking about me. Like that's kind of what's going on here. It quite goes right along with another article that I read recently about narcissists getting involved in feminist activism. It seems to be a magnet for them. So, and yeah, it just blows my mind. Oh, they're looking at my tits. So let's see. She said, people can think whatever they like, but I paid for it with money that I earned. It cost $6,000. In London, that's $10,000. So it's cheaper in Birmingham.
Earned is a bit of a stretch. Earned. She's a politician.
Right.
She doesn't earn shit. She steals the taxes of the British public and
Right.
spends it all on demonizing the British public, especially men.
Yep. She says, I get the feminist argument. Why do I feel this way? It's undoubtedly because of the male gaze. But the outcome is I feel better, I can exercise more, I'm healthier, it's my body, my choice. God, she had to throw that in there. That's sad.
Are you jabbed and boosted? Yes.
Yeah. Good question.
Just a question, that's all.
Yeah. Well, when they do breast reduction, they lift them as well. So she is boosted one way or another. Get the little booster seats. But yeah, I paid for it with money that I earned. What do feminists say when men pay for things they want with money that they earned? You think about that. He has a nice car. He's driving a Ferrari or a Porsche, or maybe he's really, really rich and he's driving a Bentley or something even more expensive, and somebody else is driving it for him. Oh, it's a substitute for his dick. Right? He's insecure. Mm-hmm. He has to have this midlife crisis car. Right? Men, when they spend money on themselves, they get demonized for it. They get ridiculed for it. A guy wants a video game that he can enjoy as a relaxing pastime, because men relax by challenging themselves in ways that it's not the end of the world if they fail a bunch of times before they succeed. Right? Women don't always understand that very well, but it's a waste of money and a waste of time because he's not using it to benefit women, right? He's using it to benefit himself. He's enjoying it. It's just for fun. His fun. Not her fun. But she gets a breast reduction. Well, people can think whatever they like, but I paid for it with money that I earned. So? You criticize men for what they do with their money that they earned. What makes you think you're above criticism? Oh, wait, you're a woman. She says, I get the feminist argument, but... Oh, wait, I said that one. It's my body, my choice. The Birmingham Yardley MP. By the way, that's the Birmingham thing, as an American.
You all have a Birmingham in every state, right? And they're all just as bad as the Birmingham we have here. It's the same with Manchester.
Right.
Like every British city has an analogue in every American state for some reason.
Yeah, but the one that is well known in the United States is Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and
Yeah.
I have an individual I work with that likes jets, and so I found a video of jet spotting. I found a bunch of videos actually of jet spotting, jets taking off and landing at airports on YouTube, and there was one that said Birmingham, and I thought, how neat. You know, I didn't even realize there was an airport in Alabama. Well, it's UK. So the video is UK, and I realized that as soon as I heard conversation among people around the camera, and the accent was not Southern. It was across the pond. But yeah.
There's not a great deal of people in Alabama who sound like Ozzy Osbourne, but I'm sure there are a few.
Yeah, not very many. but so it was like, oh, that's not the Birmingham that I was thinking of. But yeah. So here we go. The Birmingham Yardley MP who last month quit. Okay, this guy's name is spelled
Sir?
Sir Keir Starmer.
Sir Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet over his refusal to call a ceasefire in Gaza. Told the Times magazine it felt exhausting that misogyny, sexual harassment, and even rape were still part of parliamentary life.
Whoa! Oh, yeah. Hey, Nick Constable, did you not feel like asking a follow-up question on that? How often do people get raped in the House of Commons? What?
Right.
Did you not go, hey, did you not put your hand up and go, hey, Jess, can you expand on that? How often have you been raped in the House of Commons?
It's probably a thing that just happens, like right after the roll call, but before the introduction of the first piece of legislation for the day. Like, then, all right, guys, it's time for the rape. All the female MPs front and center. Come on.
Preferably before tea, so they can have their refreshments and get back on to business.
Jess, you're excused. We wouldn't even rape you.
I mean, seriously, you couldn't expound on this a little bit. It's one sentence. This is a very short article. I mean, did you just do the bare minimum to collect the paycheck? I guess, Nick, that's what you're doing here, but this is disgusting.
Yeah.
I kind of understand the angle that he's going for, or the point that he's trying to make, but it's just very badly worded, you know, because I guess Sir, I didn't know he was a Sir. Keir Starmer has refused call for a ceasefire in Gaza. So what's happening to the people in Gaza amounts to the, sexual harassment, rape, and all this other shit. At least that's what my 2 + 2 brain is putting together. That's the 4 that I see, but
yeah,
it's just still lacking so much context here, and it might not. You just should have left this out. You should have just talked about her tits a little bit more. Honestly,
Which nobody really wanted to hear. So
seriously,
you have to put your skepticism hat whenever there's a journalist talking, even if it's something like the Daily Mail that's not quite as violently left wing as all the other papers. So while we're reading about all this boob shit, you have to wonder if maybe Nick Constable did go to Jess Phillips ostensibly saying he was going to talk about politics, and then maybe she spent 2 minutes talking about her boobs and he wrote the entire article about her boobs. That's exactly the kind of thing any journalist in the lamestream press would do. So maybe she did get got in that sense. But then you read that sentence and you're like, well, okay, no, this guy is pushing the feminist agenda just like anyone else.
Right.
Even if he was talking about politics at first, he used it as a vehicle to just present this idea that rape is part of parliamentary life and that this has something to do with Gaza.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Yeah, it's all politics. Of course, it could just be that this is also the most interesting thing that she had to say in the entire conversation, and everything else that came out of her mouth was so stupid and boring that he ended up having to write an article about her tits because there was nothing else to write about. And he just threw Gaza in there because it's, timely and shit. And by the way, if Sir Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet called for a ceasefire in Gaza, do you think that the Jews and the Palestinians would stop shooting at each other forever?
Exactly.
Like, wait, no, we can't do this anymore. We have been doing this for decades, and every time we sort of come to a stop, it starts back up again. It's a lot like the Hatfields and the McCoys, except with bigger weapons and stuff, and weirder cruelty and stuff, but totally because this English guy leading a group of other people in England said we should stop. We're gonna stop. We'll just forget about everything that we have said are reasons why we're doing this, and we'll just quit. No more fighting, thanks, guys.
There's some big-titted bint over in Birmingham who has a complaint. She called the manager, and she has something to say. You must listen, you brown people.
Yeah. Stop being angry at each other. Stop fighting.
Yeah. Right.
Like, no, but I just had to ask that.
God, it's just and again, I think this was kind of thrown in because you can't not support the U's in these trying times.
Yeah. Jeez. So there we go. We have solved all the world's problems. All we have to do is get a group of people from the UK to make a proclamation as to what should happen, and then all the problems will be solved.
Or in San Francisco. Did you all see that clip?
Oh my God, no.
No.
There's a clip going around Twitter of this committee in San Francisco that just voted to advise a ceasefire on Joe Biden, and they're all sat around in masks, still in masks.
Oh my God!
Sort of singing in unison. I forget what it was. Something about ceasefire in Gaza. Hideously cult-like behavior.
Well, these people think they're clever and original.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
They just think if they demand something. And they vote amongst themselves in this tiny building to advise something to I nearly said Barack Obama, Joe Biden. They're the same person at this point. If they agree to tell the president to do something, then that's a victory. Yay! Yeah. We voted apparently 99-1 to advise the president to have a ceasefire in Gaza. We've won. We've done something. We've changed the world. Loo-de-doo, let's sing and dance together. Let's fucking shake our babies. What? There's one masked woman who's there just fucking shaking her baby as she does.
Jeez,
You know, I was
that's
waiting.
Fabulous.
You know how
Kid.
Pelosi and all those idiots, they kneeled with their fucking the African like cloth, like the heads and the head wrap or whatever, and the scarves or whatever, and they're all kneeling, taking a knee for George Floyd.
Yeah.
When are they gonna put the fuck a yarmulke on and
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, hold your breath until that happens and see what happens.
And wait in the tunnels until further notice.
Yeah. There we go.
Do you think the tunnels in Brooklyn are linked to the tunnels under Gaza? Have they gone that far by then?
They might get a little water in the tunnels at that point, maybe.
Or a little bit of magma, but they can handle it.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, totally.
I gotta give it to them people for appropriating, so because those tunnels were not built by those people.
No.
Those
They
people
just
don't do manual labor.
No, they hired other people and paid them to build those tunnels.
No. I think those tunnels were built off of the labor of people who were probably not paid to do
Yeah,
it.
German people, perhaps.
I don't know. But in any case, so she has quit this very important cabinet. I have no idea what this cabinet does, the shadow cabinet. But she's quit this very important cabinet. It's a devastating blow to her power level, although now that she's made this great change in her whole personality and everything, she could join the itty bitty titty committee.
She had a 6,000 pound personality change.
6,000 pound personality reduction. Oh no, she has none left. Feels, she says, a little bit like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It isn't a man's world. It's a world in which women are much more tired than they used to be. What the fuck does that even mean?
What?
It isn't a man's world. Well, at least they're admitting that now, because feminists are always like, it's a man's world, women are blah, blah, blah.
Both of those statements are true, to be fair. It isn't a man's world, and it is a world in which women are more tired than they used to be.
That is
Because they're trying to make it a women's world, and women are fucking exhausted from doing 40-hour-a-week jobs.
Trying to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, it's never really been a man's world. It's been a world for men and women and children. And men have worked very hard to make sure that women and children had the things that they needed to be comfortable in the world, even when it meant men had to be very uncomfortable in the process of creating that. So I would say it's more women and children's world that was supported by male labor, but, feminists don't like hearing that, so she definitely would be taking offense. This has never been a man's world. It's always been a human world, and it's always run on male sacrifice and male power, and women have always made the mistake, if not in mass, then in pockets, of resenting that instead of recognizing it as the resource that it is, appreciating it, rewarding it, stewarding it, and treating it as something that is being done for them instead of something that is being done to them. But then you have Jess Phillips complaining that she feels looked at and therefore men are responsible. She says, people will refer to any argument you make, regardless of how economic it might be, as being emotional. The honorable lady is led by her heart. And who could blame her? Fuck off, I'm led by the data.
What data, Jess? Spoiler alert, she does not go on to cite any data whatsoever.
Well, even if she does, if the data is this many people are poor, therefore I want more welfare, you're led by your heart because you're not looking at why they're poor. You're not looking at the situation. You're not looking at the effects of your spending, and so on. Like, it's not necessarily unfair to say that a bleeding heart liberal is led by their heart. Right? That's bullshit. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with being female either, because men get called that too. I do still feel like women have to club together to get heard, across parties as well. It feels like we can't just say something. 20 of us have to say something. That's annoying.
You have a minister for women. You already are able to club together through your minister for women. Guess who doesn't have a minister for them? You can probably guess.
Yeah. And guess who suggested that it was misogynistic for men to have a minister? Specifically, Jess Phillips. Jess Phillips is the holdup. She's the reason why men don't have a minister. It's her fault because she opposed men having a say. Right? Women, 20 of us have to say something to get it across. No, all it takes is one. And quite frequently, it doesn't even matter if she's telling the truth. It doesn't matter if she's right or wrong. It doesn't matter if what she's talking about is a big deal or a small issue. People jump to do something about it. There can be 50 people in an office who are comfortable and one woman who is cold, and the heat has to be turned up or the air conditioning has to be turned down. And it's sexist to have it cold for that woman, even if other women are comfortable.
Yep.
It so happens that, that's the woman wearing the short sleeves and the short skirt, as opposed to the rest of the people who are dressed with their arms and legs covered for warmth, or for appearance sake. Ms. Phillips, 42, said her decision to quit Sir Keir's shadow minister for domestic violence and safeguarding. So wait a minute. Domestic violence is such a big issue of patriarchal oppression and misogyny in the UK, right? We hear about this all the time. We hear about it from the guy whose initials sound like his name should be motherfucker. We hear about it from UK feminists. We hear about it from American feminists. That domestic violence is one of the most essential issues. It is a patriarchal pattern of violence against women by men that all men are involved in, even if they're not participating in the violence itself, and all men are responsible for it, and therefore if you're not actively trying to do something about it, it's your fault that it's happening, right? So it's vital, it's absolutely vital to the women who are her constituents. But she quit that over a point of doctrine, political doctrine, that had they agreed upon it, would have had exactly jack and shit to do with what happens in the world. Am I missing something? Like, am I wrong about this?
I'm missing everything.
Seriously, she quit something that she has. It's like one of the biggest issues of feminism. As a feminist, as a woman who needs to have a say in this, she quit this shadow ministry or whatever on this very important topic over an unrelated argument that the outcome of which would have had no effect on the world whatsoever. Does that am I missing something?
As we go on to read in the last couple of paragraphs, she's trying to play both sides of the Israel versus Palestine thing. She does the Israel's right to defend itself, and she does the Palestinians have the right to whatever thing, and this is suicide for any politician to try and play both sides of this, because you can't. You're going to get called anti-Semitic or Islamophobic, whichever side you take, and if you take both sides, you'll get called both.
Right.
The only way to get through it ethically, in my opinion, is to say fuck both of those half nations. We need to concentrate on what's it called, Britain, the country we're supposed to be representing. But I don't know of any politician who's taking that approach, because they're all a bunch of oikophobic grifters who would rather support other countries than their own country. This is the inevitable course that any government takes eventually. They're not going to support their own country or the people in that country because they own those people. They already own those people. They consider it their job to control those people and only those people. And the best way to control those people is to focus only on the well-being of other peoples. Yeah. This is the nature of oikophobia, and it takes over governments before it takes over anything else, because it's a machine that's supposed to be designed to serve those people, but once it's in charge, it's just a machine. Remember, the government is just a machine. It's composed of human cogs, but fundamentally it's just a machine, and it has no empathy for people. And because it's in charge of people but has no empathy for those people, it treats those people as slaves, as things that it's willing to control.
Yeah, and it obviously the whole discussion about the Hatfields and the McCoys of the Middle East, that it's really not about changing what's going on there, changing what's being done there, changing the fight. Because if it was, the nations would have worked together to work with the leaders of those two groups to find a compromise that both groups could agree to, instead of taking sides. They would have figured out a way to negotiate peace and make it lasting, one way or another. But that's not what has happened, right? All these nations get their public fighting with each other over this, and it is the dumbest argument for people in a foreign nation to have about these groups in this nation. It's literally useless. You could talk about it. We could talk about it right here. I mean, we could have opinions about it right here, right now on HBR Talk, and spend 2 hours having a show about our opinions regarding that conflict. And nothing would change. Nothing would be accomplished. Nobody would be influenced. Nobody's mind would be changed. It wouldn't occur to anybody to even consider changing their opinion on it. Right? That alone to me says it's worthless. And it reminds me of an incident from when I was probably in about elementary school, because it was back when SeaWorld still used to exist. And I have no idea when it closed. Been a long time. In any case, we were driving from where I grew up. We were driving across Ohio for a vacation to this place. And my brother and I get into this argument. Who would win in a fight between a saber-toothed tiger and a polar bear? And we got really heated about this argument. Like it was the most important argument we ever had in our whole life.
It's a polar bear. It's obviously a polar bear. It's not even.
Well, the polar. See, that's my thinking, because the ancestor of polar bears that actually existed at the time that saber-toothed tiger existed were like
was a
these
massive
dire,
bear.
yes, fucking huge, would just hit the tiger once and knock it into next week, right? But of course we're having this argument. My brother was thinking of modern polar bears and the saber-toothed tiger being what it was during its lifetime and having those big nasty pointy teeth and having the flexibility of cats and everything. So this was like a massive knockdown, drag out, voices raised in the backseat of the car while Dad's trying to drive in heavy traffic going across Ohio argument, at which point he's like, stop, cut this out. We will turn around. We will go home. All the things parents say when you're misbehaving in the back of the car on your way to or from, on your way to someplace where you want to go. And, like the one point he made to us is like, if you settle this argument, if somebody wins this argument, then what happens? What do you get out of winning this argument? What is the prize? And we both were like sitting there going, we hadn't thought of that. Because we were really getting mad at each other about it. And, looking back at it, it's like, as a little kid, you understand, why, and you'd get mad at another little kid for having the wrong opinion about who would win in a fight between a polar bear and a saber-toothed tiger. But what do you win? Say, we prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the polar bear would have won. And we have solid reasons why the polar bear would have won. And we can now sit there and see that each other over the result of the argument. And we just ruined a car ride where we would have gotten the opportunity to look out the window and see all kinds of interesting things that we missed because we were busy arguing over something that didn't matter. And the thing didn't matter in our lives. And on top of that, our opinion wouldn't matter. I could conclusively prove that it would be 100% logical that a polar bear would win in a fight between a polar bear and a saber-toothed tiger. But would it affect the life of any saber-toothed tiger that ever existed? Ever? No. Polar bears? No. Nothing. Right? So the argument was worthless. That's how I feel about this argument. We could sit and talk all day about what's going on in the Gaza Strip and have all kinds of opinions about whose fault it is, what each side should do, what the response of other government entities should do, how this affects the people that aren't willing to be involved in the fight but are dragged into it anyway, and all that kind of stuff. And, I could sit here on my butt in Ohio and talk about the history of Israel versus the history of the Palestinian movement, and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, are their lives affected at all? Do I change anything? No. And if I had that argument, with the interest of affecting politicians, it might be worth a tiny fraction of something. But let's say I got into that argument with my boss at work, which I would never do, because you just don't do that at work if you care about your job, right? But let's say I did. And let's say my boss had an opposing opinion. Whatever my opinion was, her opinion's the opposite, right? She's for the saber-toothed tiger, and I'm for the polar bear.
Yeah, I had a boss. I had a boss that voted for Bush. I know the feeling.
So let's say I get mad, right? Now my work is activism. There isn't anything I do that isn't activism. Taking care of people with disabilities is activism. You're literally trying to help people, even if it's just trying to help people not have lives as difficult as they can be. Right? So I imagine that I walk away from that over an argument over Gaza, or over polar bears and saber-toothed tigers. Like, what kind of a fucknut would I be if I did something like that? What kind of a dumb piece of shit, useless asshole walks away from an important job helping people in trouble or in need over an argument that even if you won that argument, the result is nothing. Like, I thought I was as disgusted with this woman as I could possibly be. You know, I don't share her opinions on domestic violence. I don't blame all men. I don't think all women are victims. I obviously don't think that the gender balance of it is what she thinks it is. But she does think those things, or at least she professes to. She does believe that this is an emergency. She does believe that there are victims in dire straits that desperately need her help as a member of this cabinet, or not cabinet, but ministry. And she walked away from it over an argument that if she won the argument, nothing would change. And it's not even related.
See, I think what she suffers from is the need to be right.
That is so fucking feminine.
Yes.
Like, I've never seen men
Yes,
stop
is.
digging a ditch because one of them thinks the dress is blue and the other one thinks the dress is white. One of them thinks the Hatfields were the good guys and one of them thinks the McCoys were the good guys. You know, or one of them thinks the polar bear would win, or one of them thinks the saber-toothed tiger would win. Right? There's a ditch here. It's got to be dug. Let's get it done. You know, let's shut the fuck up about this stupid issue and get it done. Right. What does she do? Oh, well, I'm not going to help you with that ditch. Do it yourself.
Yeah. Why does that ditch need to be dug to begin with? It's your fault. It's the patriarchy.
Yeah.
A ditch needs to be dug 4,000 fucking miles away. Let's focus on that.
Yes.
one that I can't even affect. One that I don't have a shovel that will touch. Right? My shovel has no power in that ditch. I am going to walk away from this one over that.
I mean, maybe her 6,000-pound tits could have leveled it, but I don't know. But yeah, no, this is the language of women: shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. R.I.P. Kevin Samuel.
Yeah,
you know, and she embodies all of that, like full blast.
Yep. Now this is why feminists think that power, men in power exempt all men from potential oppression and victimhood. But a woman in the same position of power can be a victim of imagining the effects of other people's eyeballs.
Right.
on her charisma or whatever, her social power. And
you sexually assaulted me in my brain.
I imagined that you were looking at my tits. I want to file a complaint. Oh my God. She told the magazine that Israel had a right to defend itself and that she had not joined any pro-Palestinian rallies. It worries me that they're anti-Semitic, she said. The idea that Jewish people feel frightened to share their identity is chilling, and that's the end of it. So she's gonna she's latching onto the Jewish victimhood there at the end. Her tits. She's attached her tits to the Jewish identity victim cart.
I mean, I've never met a Jew that was afraid to say that they were Jewish unless they're in Hollywood and they changed their last name to be more appropriate or whatever. But
I don't know. I've never seen that happen either. But I suppose if it did, they wouldn't tell you.
I mean, but this is the idea. They're frightened to share their identity. They're not hiding in attics, okay, and under floorboards.
Except in universities.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing. This makes me kind of sick. You know, in the end, it's not just toxic. It's toxic in a whole variety of ways. Starting with the attack on male existence, like men just exist in a room and suddenly women are victims of their own imagination as to what those men might be thinking. And then you have this, like, who cares about this one woman's breasts and what she did with them? That's not really anybody else's concern. But most of all, she's such a fucking piece of shit that she actually walked away from what she claims is a huge issue. Either she's lying and it's not the issue that she's, she knows it's not the issue she's claiming it is, or she's just that shallow, that conceited over an argument that doesn't matter in her situation. Her participation in that argument is entirely pointless.
She is entirely pointless.
True. So with that, let's get into the super chats. And I like this. Eric Bruner says, Hannah, arguing about the Middle East is pointless unless you are directly involved. Chat starts arguing about it. And yeah, I did kind of notice that. But yeah. And Reapzilla, yes, you do often get more from losing an argument than winning one. Albatross gave us $5 and said the saber-toothed cats and polar bears would join forces to battle against the dinosaurs. Yeah, especially the ones that would be trying to eat them.
I mean, just somebody
usually takes priority.
I get that that's a joke, but they're 60 million years apart.
Yeah, well,
I mean, whatever.
Still
Somebody
closer together than polar bears and saber-toothed tigers.
Somebody make a movie about that instead of another goddamn Godzilla versus King Kong bullshit.
Yeah. Wait, didn't they call that Ice Age? Just, it was non-violent and stuff, but
Oh, you know what? I never saw that.
It was those movies were cute. The Ice Age. The squirrel was fabulous. But yeah, those were cute movies. I wish they made more movies like that. But in any case, that goes by the wayside in favor of politics. In the Super Chow channel, Meredith G gave us $5 and said HBR News 291. What's HBR Talk? Bad, Meredith. Just kidding. This is kind of news because we are reading a sort of a fluff news article that turns out to be actually a major under-the-radar attack on men and masculinity, and a revelation of exactly what a shallow walking turd Jess Phillips really is. But Meredith G gives us $5 and says, honey for the badgers. As someone who has had reduction surgery in my 20s, I didn't do it to stop being stared at. I got the surgery because I was physically uncomfortable. I was suffering back pains and muscle strain. So I'm going to call BS. Phillips is just playing victim, and since a reduction is rather obvious, she's using it for victim points.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Beer gave us $5 and said, wasn't she speaking at Parliament during winter energy shortage about visiting a constituent and noting that the constituent had purple hands because the constituent couldn't afford to run the heating? That is some cold.
Good God.
Right there. Obviously, the winter energy shortage is sexist. Even if it was a dude that was cold. Like, holy shit. So when are y'all going to figure out that you can't just jump to a new way of doing something and hope the infrastructure will follow? You actually have to have a plan and execute that plan in order to make sure that everybody is able to get what they need. Like, that's... Politicians used to at least have to do that. Richard Beer gave us $5 and said, look up a video from the Women Against Tiredness Society on YouTube. I don't... Oh, gosh. What do you mean that I'm not allowed to come to the professional workplace nearly naked? You're repressing me! And, yep. That's the Super Chows. And then we have a Rumble rant. NovaFan21 gave us... $1 and said, I love your boob jokes. They are titillating. Especially right now because it's a tit-bit nipply outside.
It's colder than a witch's titty.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I had to get rid of my brass bra. It's really bad. Since I stopped practicing. So there we go, guys. That's the article. Hopefully everybody got out of it as much as I did. For a fluff piece, it turned out to be quite. It hid a quite gummy center, I guess would be the best way to put that.
Much like Jess Phillips.
Yeah, very very fluffy on the outside and slimy on the inside.
No, there's nothing fluffy or slimy about Jess Phillips. She's a stone heart inside of a tin man.
There you
Like
go.
everything about her.
Crunchy. Telminar just gave us $20 on the Super Chow channel and said, speaking of Godzilla movies, I highly recommend Godzilla -1. Saw it in theaters recently. Japanese movie, very well made. The humans are fully as important as the monster. Well, that's interesting. Now I'm going to have to find that. I imagine it's probably going to be on some streamings or another. All right, and I missed a super chat. Which super chat? So I got to go back here. So I got the one, Sabretooth.
See, you could totally do the polar bear and the saber-toothed tiger and the dinosaur movie if you somehow like incorporated the time machine element into it. Follow me, people.
Or an alternate dimension where the meteor never hit the Earth and women were not most affected. Albert Nader Retro gave us $5 and said, I already told you if a polar bear fought a saber-toothed tiger, as in all things, the winner would be Chuck Norris. This is true.
Can't argue with that.
He's undefeated. Undefeated.
This is why Chuck Norris has to play the polar bear. Because we already know the saber-toothed cat smokes nonstop and has cancer. Anybody who has seen the movies, and he's an asshole. Anybody who's seen the movies knows who I'm talking about. But with that, the Mongols did go there. Oh, we're still talking about war in the chat. We have mentioned, let's see, the Chinese, Canaanites, this is moving, Achaemenids and Persians, the Mongols, the Mamelukes. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these all. Good grief. Okay, so that's enough of that. And kaijus. Yeah. Not to be confused with any race of humans. With that, we will say thanks to everybody for listening to the weirdly seasoned sausage. Thanks to my co-hosts, my two co-hosts, for tolerating my using Jess Phillips and her bullshittery as a subject matter. And
we milked her for all she's worth.
Yeah, we milked her but we wouldn't even rape her. I'm gonna say that over and over again just because I can. We're probably, this video is gonna be taken down for offending Jess Phillips. Thanks, YouTube, and thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. And good night, all.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.